It's Eve 2020, June 4th. I am Matterall. And let's talk about some EVE Online here, starting with the PCU. So in the last 24 hours, the peak players that have been on concurrently have numbered at 35,500. And then the low is 19,100. So that's the range, 19,000 to 35,000. And at the moment we have, let's take a look here, 30,600, and it's climbing to its peak, which will be around 36,000. So that's where we're at with that. Moving to Dotlan statistics, let's have a look. I'll try to get through these quicker. Most violent regions in Empire space are Lone Trek, 3,838, Domain, 3,162, Metropolis, 3,031. Most violent systems in HiSec. They don't actually have those, do they? Here they are, right at the bottom. First place is Heck. Wow. In the last 24 hours, there was 1,343 ships destroyed in Heck. That's Metropolis. I don't even think that registered. In second place is, a distant second place, is Jita. 519 ships destroyed. And in third place, Raravas. It's been in the news a lot lately. 793 ships destroyed. More pods destroyed in Jita than Raravas, and that's why Jita gets second place. Looking at nullsec the last 24 hours, violent regions are Catch with 1,302 ships destroyed. Veil of the Silent, a lot of stuff happening there, 849. And third place Venal, 877. So the most violent nullsec systems. GTAC W1 ND in Awasa, 370 ships destroyed. Second place, period basis is system JZL TAC, 299 ships destroyed. And then Syndicate, the system AK TAC QB, 300 ships destroyed. Just point out something that's interesting. The most violent regions, Catch, Veil, and Venal, none of those have specific systems that have are in the top three systems or most violent systems. So that's really interesting. Normally you see a region that has a lot of destruction in it, and you would see at least one system belonging to the top three, but that didn't happen this time. The same thing with Empire Space, Lone Trek, Domain. I guess Metropolis is in third place there, and that's where you do see the system of Heck in Metropolis with 1/3 of their total. So something happened in Heck, and we should probably look into that. We'll look into that after we go through some news here. Okay. We skipped low. We are now at low sec here, so let's look at low sec in the last 24 hours. Arrow Hunan is in first place with 656 ships destroyed in the last 24 hours. In second place in Metropolis, Asset, 602 ships destroyed. In the Citadel, Tama system has 368 ships destroyed. NPC rating, mostly happening in period basis, Awasa, Cobalt, Edge. Then the 9th and 10th spot are taken up by Delve. So period basis, again, is associated with Delve, so you can consider that the same area. So wow, period basis really getting farmed for NPCs ever since the groups from Dead Coalition in the north moved south. In the Alliance changes for membership, you saw Pandemic Horde pick up about 400 players. MSN here, I think that's what they're called. They lost about 400 players. Yeah, MSN. And I think there was a big fracture in this alliance. This is the Chinese alliance allied with... they're in the north, so they're allied with Ranger Regiment, I believe.
No, Stars of the Northern Moon would be allied with Pandemic Horde and Veni Vidi Vici and
That's it.
Fraternity.
VVV is who I was thinking, not Ranger Regiment. Ranger Regiment went south, but VVV stayed up there. Or Triple V. Yes, it's Triple V and MSN are allies. What happened? Do you know why they lost 400 members?
I believe it began with some mentions that Stars of the Northern Moon might be collapsing up in on itself. One of their main PvP corps, Jadwiger 52, moved to Ranger Regiment, and I presume several other groups within Stars of the Northern Moon had also, left Stars of the Northern Moon for perhaps one of the other alliances, Chinese alliances nearby.
Okay, thanks. Right, and then I think the Wraith Guard lost 160 characters. I like looking at these groups I haven't heard of yet. They were up at about nearly 400. And now they're at 218, so they lost about half their membership. That's taken a while to fill in. Okay, let's actually move on to kills. So that's it for our Dotlan statistics. Next, we'll move on to the kill boards and see what big kills happened in the last 24 hours. Again, we're looking at a ton of structures since we're in the first few days of abandoned structures. And we can just tick some of these off. These are the ones that are over 10 million. If I switch this to 5 million, 5 million and above at... did that increase? That's interesting. We can see a bit more. Yeah, okay. So we'll just start with 10 million and see what's going on here. Ouch. Goon Swarm Ria was picked off in Tribute at JTAC-G. It was killed by Rotworks, I think, or Roteworks, actually. I think that's Rote Capel. And a gang of 9 took out this freighter. Actually, it's a jump freighter. Let's have a look. Yeah, half the value is going to be in the ship, but this still was carrying about 9 billion in cargo. And this looks like oxygen isotopes, a lot of fuels here, a lot of isotopes, a lot of isotopes. Actually, it was mostly... Yeah, this was making fuel, had some data cores with it. It's like industrial stuff. So this is definitely a shipment. It wasn't somebody moving their stuff. It was a shipment of goods. But most of it costs in fuel. There were some turrets here, the quad mega pulse laser 2s. 10 of those went up. So that's what the cargo was. And so that was just a little while ago. An Asbel went down in J-Space belonging to Zodiac Syndicate. Rosetta Regnan. June 3rd. Okay, here's where we start yesterday. So we'll just tick through these pretty quick, though, unless there's something surprising. Lost in Shadow, lost a Fortizar in Melpass. Army of Mango lost an Asbel in Omist. Hometown Holdings Drilling Company lost a Tatara in Domain. Dark Forge Enterprise losing an Asbel in Essence. Test Alliance losing an Asbel in Catch. They must have forgot that one. MSN, better known as, well, best known as MSN, but also known as the Stars of Northern Moon, lost to Tartara and Branch.
Surprising because Azure Citizen is actually one of the renter alliances of Fraternity, so I presume they've gotten permission after what's happened to Stars of the Northern.
Yeah. Interesting, yeah. So maybe that's not part of the abandoned structures, but just, but literally abandoned structures as they took off and left that structure for dead. It was a 30 billion. It was worth 30 billion, which I think is a bit more than the actual structure. Let's have a look.
I found out what happened with Stars of the Northern Moon. The majority of their PvP corps have jumped to Ranger Regiment. That happened sometime about a month ago, and a bunch of smaller corps, some of which had some issues with themselves. They've all been purged all at once. Just over, I'd say, 300 or so people worth of corps have just been removed.
Yeah, that was happening a week or two ago. Like it's, I mean, we're just seeing the fallout now, but the disagreements and the splitting up politically was happening at least a week ago. That's what I was hearing about it, internal problems in MSN, that there was going to be a split up. So mostly on this, Tatar is this stand-up LSET reprocessing monitor 2. That's a rig worth 17 billion. So the majority of that price tag is for that destruction, that ship. Yeah, and it was basically killed by Fraternity and a couple of their renters, I guess. Okay, moving on to, here's a ship kill for 12 billion. This is Gimme the Loot, killed in the Citadel. That sounds familiar. I wonder if we saw that yesterday. Yeah, it was a blueprint carrier. In other words, somebody using a frigate to carry blueprints. That was yesterday, so I think that we've kind of covered all of that. That's everything over 10 billion, but if we look at everything over 5 billion, the list is going to grow. Let's see if there's some new stuff in here. We see a 5 billion Naglfar belonging to Resolute, destroyed in J-Space. That is, dreadnoughts and carriers in J-Space are usually very, very decked out, so they are expensive. We have a... Yeah?
What's up?
Oh, we're live on air, Cassian Anders, so keep that in mind. We're talking about kills.
Okay.
You can stick around just to keep that in mind. You should know, since you don't usually pop in. Oh, he's gone. Okay. The Citadel saw Rotaru killed for a little over 5 billion, belonging to iHUB. And here's another interesting kill in Ibis for Space Mutts. 6.5 billion. Now, an Ibis is worth a few thousand, so maybe 20,000. So where'd that billion come from? Let's find out. This is the second one of these we've seen. We've seen two. We've seen two beginner frigates destroyed with a ton of blueprints, and this had 6.5 billion in blueprints. And it was killed by monomer polymer. Who's this guy with? Bunny and Whiskey. Trying to see if there's a connection. Yeah, Bunny and Whiskey killed Space Mutts in high sec. Here's the thing. The lesson to be learned here. If you're in a frigate without any tank at all, and you get scanned down, and you're carrying a ton of blueprints, you're exposed as being valuable and very easy to kill, even for one ship. So it won't take a setup of 10, 20 destroyers to take you out, since you're so small and have no shields and no armor. You can be killed instantly by whoever decides, any one person can decide, yeah, that's worth killing, even if I explode too. So typically you want to be so fast that you can't be scanned down, or you want to be so tanked that it's going to take a commitment to take you out. Otherwise, you're seen as a target of opportunity for anyone in high sec. And that may be what happened here, although it's kind of suspicious. It's the second frigate we've seen that has lost a ton in blueprints. Moving on. Let's see, we covered that one, that one. This one here in Paragon Falls, PIBC loses a Fortizar in Paragon Falls. That came out to 9 billion. Killed by Fraternity. It's probably a war target. Here's another Octator, Les Industries, Phoenix Alliance, killed by Slowburn, Sativa, and 4 others. And that was also in high sec. Has a 0.9 system, so this was maybe a war target. Doesn't look like
No,
it was
this
getting...
was 4 people in NPC corps, just destroying it with a tornado, 4 tornado. So I presume they must have caught it autopiloting and just destroyed it on the gate.
Oh, I see some blue and some... There's a lot of nice modules on this one. Yeah, I was carrying stuff in cargo in Fleet Hangar. Yeah, it lost about 5 billion in really like a lot of Tech 2 and specialized modules. So this is some good stuff that was blown up here. Or dropped as loot. Full Fleet Hangar and also full cargo hold. So this guy is just unlucky. Yeah, that was a pretty ugly loss. Speaking of ugly losses, these structures, there's so many of them. Okay, so carrying on, Ritaru destroyed for 9 billion in the Forge. And Asbel destroyed in Metropolis for 9 billion. It's a lot of these 9 billion ones. And then yesterday there was Vindictive lost to Fortizar and Detrid. X-Tac 3-1-TE was killed by Island Monkeys. And Snuffed Out, losing an Asbel to TNT. Congratulations, TNT. They took out Rakapas Asbel. That's not a small thing. Rakapas is basically Snuffed Out's home. So to take that out, I guess that was the Imperium. Yeah, because there's over 100 people in that fleet. Not a small thing. Another Asbel was taken out. This one belonged to the Army of Mango in Omist. That's where that happened. Taken out by Fraternity in OKEO Tech X. And then you had another Naglfar in J Space. Taken out by the Bastion. And Endless Journey loses a Ritaru in the Forge. And Fraternity losing a Fortizar in the Spire E4 TAC. That was killed by Volta. All right, and this is the last one that we'll read out here. This was Lone Trek Holdings lost a Ritaru in Lone Trek. It's killed by deadly alphas. I wonder if they were actually alphas. No, probably not. There were only 3 of them, so there you go. All right, those are the kills for the kill board. Looking at iHUB timers, looks much the same as yesterday, which is a lot of Scalding Pass, Wicked Creek, which is interesting to see those areas have some iHUBs. Must be some action going on there. Vale is silent. We already know there's stuff going on in Vale. A lot of iHUBs there. At least looks like 4 or 5. So check that out. I'm going to take out the iHUB filter. I wonder if these timers here, these are going to be for structures and, well, territorial claim units. Actually, let's see. Yeah, it's only iHUBs or territorial claim units. We don't really track territorial claim units since they're more decorative. They don't really signify actual SOV being taken. They're more, I would say, to put it this way, if you were shopping, TCUs, territorial claim units, are more like coupons, and iHUBs are more like cash. So you want to look at the cash, not the coupons.
Some questions in chat about
Oh my God, I'm not reading chat at all. I got to look right now. Bad habits.
So people don't know suspect when you loot hangars. Definitely. I think some people know that you're getting suspect and they're fitting appropriately. Then Payne Crafter asks, how come everyone and their mother is going after smashing stations? There was a recent change where if you did not fuel your structure for 7 days in low power, it would go to abandoned, and that would disable asset safety outside of wormholes. So all those structures that have not been fueled have turned into loot pinatas, and people are bashing them.
Yeah, that's a big deal. We have a couple things going on, Eve. We've said it yesterday and the day before. We should say it just about every day. And that is, one is we have Triglavians invading and now taking over systems and lowering their security apparatus to what is essentially low sec or null sec, which means that a high sec system that's taken over by Triglavians becomes a brawling area with no penalties for players to fight in there. Other than that, they're pretty much the same as far as we know right now. So that's one thing. The second thing is abandoned structures came in on the 26th, at least those new mechanics, which means if you don't have your structure pulling fuel, it's considered abandoned. So it falls into a 7-day cooldown period called low power. That was there before. So it's in low power mode. But then after 7 days, it's just considered abandoned at that point. Yeah, no asset safety. Also, no timers, so it's really easy to cut through. So you just destroy it right off the bat. You don't have to set it up and come back later to finish it off. Those two things combined have made structures, this structure purge, essentially, it's a hunting grounds for all of New Eden, because it's low sec, high sec, Empire space, and null sec. Everybody's just looking for structures that are just forgotten about, misplaced, and there's a lot of them. And let's actually, we'll talk more about this in just a bit. We're going to actually finish up with a little bit of news from CCP, and then we'll come back to abandoned structures again and talk about some of the big kills that people have been getting. So a new patch is out. This is called Clear Vision Update, and this has some pretty cool stuff in it, mostly visual. And they have demonstrated this on CCP's Twitch, and that is twitch.tv/CCP. Some of the videos there that you can see that are archived, one of them will be an art demonstration. A lot of that is what we're seeing here now implemented into the game. So the Jita station is going to become this massive, really like imperial looking structure, but it's going to take a long time to get there. So it's being built in phases. And so Jita station is moving into a new phase. Jump tunnel animation, that was demonstrated a while ago, and that is now making it into the game for the first time. And that is when you're jumping through the tunnel, you can see your ship from a third-person perspective. You also have some contrast adaptive sharpening that's happening. And that is subtle for most things, but if you look on a planet surface, that's where you will see it best. If you look at a moon, it really clears up some of that shadowy blur and gives it a crispness, a lot of like a noise layer. Well, it's a technical term, but you'll see a lot of grain in it to really give you that feel of contrast and sharpness. For those that don't know, whenever you're whenever you're painting digitally and something comes off too soft, like it feels too smooth, and you want to give it some texture, that's called a noise or noise layer. So what you're adding is what feels like, it looks like sandpaper. And there's different kinds of noise and sharpening. And what that does, it gives it some grit so that you feel like it's not a slippery surface. It's more of a, sandpaper or whatever. But it's what you do to kind of counter stuff that looks too soft, which is what they're doing. Now, noise for graphic designers and animators and stuff is such an amazing niche science for designers. It's so important to give something contrast and texture without taking away from the actual image and disrupting it. So really, scientists go and work on noise layers and try to figure out better science for noise. Okay, next thing is actually, I wanted to jump to this one here. Eve Echoes. Eve Echoes launches in 2 months. That's coming fast. And I believe the Facebook page put out launch preview, voice your thoughts. They're looking for some feedback on how to prevent script cheats. So they describe, I think, what that looks like, how a script cheat works. And wow, that looks like an old Blockbuster store with all the videos on the shelf. It's all phones and all networked into something. So I guess this is a cheating farm of some sort. So they're looking for your ideas on, or they're telling you some of their preparations on how they're going to avoid that. This is all for Eve Echoes. Check that out. That is, we'll put that in the notes and we'll put it here in chat. Okay, now let's move to, this is found on Reddit. This has to do with all the looting that's going on, and that's what we'll talk about now. This will just open up our discussion about the looting that's happening. But one of the complaints, actually, Rich here made a video on his objections to some of the communication involved with rolling out abandoned stations. It was too short a time and too few people were notified. CCP's response to Reddit is that they had sent over 150,000 emails to lapsed players about this update.
Yeah, we definitely need a bit of a rectification because yesterday the people that weren't lapsed players were not aware of this email. So there was a bit of an ongoing discussion on whether or not CCP would have done enough to inform people. But yeah, they definitely have done everything that could be expected of them.
Unfortunately, I have to dispute that because I have contacted somebody who has, well, been inactive in the last 90 days. Keep in mind this patch has the patch time between announcing Forsaken Fortress and Forsaken the Citadel's going abandoned was less than 45 days. So I have actually spoken to somebody who is unsubbed and inactive in the last 90 days, and they received no email. There's people in the subreddit who have been inactive for 6 months who've gotten no email, and I'm curious to what the parameters were when CCP decided who got the magical email warning them and who didn't.
Confirm CCP sent the email because I have 3 accounts. One is Omega, that my Omega account did not receive an email, but my other 2 accounts have been unsubbed for more than 6 months, and each one of them received the email warning me, careful, there's going to be an update, watch your stuff.
So I'm curious to what kind of person got the email, because it seems a lot of people, especially the ones that have spoken up, did not get an email. And I feel that 150,000 accounts is far too small of a number compared to the real number of people who might have gone inactive in the last previous to the 45 days.
Then again, there's plenty of people who have multiple accounts on a single email. So they were talking about 150,000 emails, so that could cover a lot more accounts.
Caught in a spam filter. No, Nick Bison, I don't think any of the emails I've gotten from CCP ever have been caught in a spam filter.
So my guess is probably that there is something like lapsed accounts or accounts that have gone unsubbed for X amount of time. That those probably were the ones that got the email. Maybe that could be based on when CCP started to give things with dev blogs or the login screen or stuff like that, where they said, okay, so anything before we started doing that, they get an email. But that's just an absolute guess from my side right now.
The question is, I think we were discussing this at length yesterday after the show, and that was, what does CCP consider their player base? Like, who are they serving? Everybody who ever played EVE? Ever? Because a lot of those guys have gone and haven't thought of EVE in 8 years, 10 years. So I wonder who you think CCP has an obligation towards. Just the people who are currently playing for the game, people who are paying for the game, playing the game, or have played the game at one time. Like, which of those is the sea of clients?
Unfortunately, a lot of players in the last 4 years since asset safety and citadels have been introduced have, well, believed in asset safety. And there's the original dev blog, I Feel Safe in Citadels, and it talks about how it's made to protect players and to allow players to return and not have all of their belongings taken away from them because they put real life before Eve. And now, in a matter of 45 days, with minimal and disputable communication to the players through email warnings, which not everybody has gotten, it's been undone.
Well, first of all, you make a lot of assumptions. One is that players put real life before Eve. Maybe they just ran out of money. Maybe they, maybe things happen, but it's not virtuous to. It's not just an instant virtue to not play Eve online. Like, they're not. Winning Eve isn't necessarily a virtue, is what I'm saying. Second, we did assume yesterday that CCP hadn't sent an email. Now we know we did send email. 130,000 emails can, if they send that per person, then or per account, that's how many accounts they sent it to, right? I think they sent an email per account, if I'm not mistaken, not just per email. Did some of you get multiple emails when there's some kind of promotion going on?
No, I have two of my other two accounts are on the same email, and then I have my main account on another email. And whenever there is a promotion, I only receive one email because CCP considers email one account.
Okay, so then that may account for, as Dutch was saying, multiple accounts, which is multiple characters and whatever. The point is, they did do what we're thinking of, right? Which is tell people like, hey, this is changing. It's a fundamental change. It means that
Yes.
You are not safe anymore. We didn't make you that promise, but we did encourage you to put your stuff into structures. But now we're telling you we are going to change that. And this is an attempt for CCP to basically change fundamental things in EVE Online that I think require low dev time, but create a lot of change in the game. I think that's something that they've been doing now for about a year. In fact, Drifters attacking was about a year ago in June. So we're at about the year mark now that the chaos era has really entered the game. Now, here's the thing, though. A lot of people, this cracks me up because a lot of people are cheering this on as a really good change. And, it feels like a giveaway to players that are here at the expense of players that have taken off that didn't come back to fix their stuff. Clearly, like if they had their stuff in a base, they took off. They don't care to come back. That wealth is going to somebody else as it gets blown up and things get looted. But some of the players that are having a great time with this were having a terrible time when CCP made the expense on them, right? When you had drifters, when you had blackout, when you had these mining nerfs, etc. They weren't very happy about these kinds of big changes. So just goes to show you, I think, that different populations get affected with different changes. But overall, the direction is very clear that we're headed towards more scarce society with value placed on items. And you can see how Plex crashes compared to all the items in the game. Plex prices are being driven down by a number of factors, but one of the major ones is that things are getting more expensive in the game. So that's a good place to put your money.
There's been significant backlash on this update. There's been several threads on the subreddit, and one of the current CSM members, Innominate, has stated that he believes that this update was a mistake on the part of CCP, and he discussed about the sanctity of assets, which has been part of the asset safety system for years. And he's made a post about this on the thread made by David Zeta on the subreddit.
Yeah, let's separate it out though. It's not there's two different topics regarding this. And the first is the change of asset safety moving forward. And I've seen very little discourse about that. Most people seem to like the idea of moving forward. Your asset safety rules have changed. Most of the discourse is around, well, what do you do to those people who already have or relying on the asset safety system? That's where the discourse is. Should CCP have done a one-time asset safety event for inactive players or not? We already know the answer. They did not do that.
Now,
and they're going back to it.
That would have been
it's
an
not like I
interesting...
can turn the knob and turn blackout off. It's done. There's nothing we can do about it.
Let's talk about the theory of that, though, Arya. The theory of that, because that was one of the things I was thinking too. Everybody to this point gets their stuff safe, but everybody after this point, they deliberately, I'm sure that came up in discussions. They deliberately said, nope, we're going to reward people for destroying these structures, maybe to incentivize them to actually do it.
Right. And we're talking, there's a difference between active and inactive, but then there's also another category called engagement. Great example. Inactive is defined by CCP as by some period of time you've not logged into the game. But that's not the same as engagement. I have characters, I log in and fly around. But I also have characters, I log in every day, I claim my login rewards, and I close the window. Very little engagement. Those characters are not doing anything in EVE other than me collecting my daily rewards. By creating a loot pinata event, you have an opportunity to increase engagement. CCP is also doing other things with the Triglavian Chapter 3 to also increase engagement. It's not hard to look at this and think, by doing these multiple things, I might pull some people back to EVE. Wow, I have this limited time to get these loot pinatas. Oh, look, Robbervoss went to nullsec. That's amazing. Maybe I'm going to play this game more. And that's a very positive thing that can come out. And that may the potential loss of people who quit the game, who are inactive and lose their stuff.
I'm on the opposite end of this viewpoint. I feel that this loot pinata is nothing more than a gold rush. This honeymoon period where people are destroying structures and they're getting all this loot of old players and these stashes. This will not last longer than, well, I don't think it'll even make 90 days. I don't even think it will make 30 days. And once the dust settles and all these structures have been broken down and people's items have been looted, then what? Then everything will have gone back to normal.
You led with you have a disagreement, then you literally reiterated my point. So to explain it again, this is a limited loot pinata event that's going to pull people back. Now, whether they stay or not, we don't know. I think CCP hopes they stay. I hope they stay. I like to see the player base grow, but you may be right. They may not stay. They may say, great, I killed all these structures and now I'm going to quit again.
I like Zero Gravity's comment here, marginally related, but your stuff magically transporting across space never made any sense to begin with. And he's right. That never made any sense. This feels a little more natural to the world.
Sometimes you have to make a sacrifice between what is, I guess, a representative of how
Realism?
the real world works, and what is actually good for the.
I think that calculation has been made, and you can tell by the action CCP's determination is that they're willing to lose players that played a long time ago that belong to this possession society, let's call it, where you accumulated a lot of things, and therefore you were kind of tempted to come back to the game because you had a lot of stuff there to begin with. Like, they've made a calculation to say that's not really a long-term strategy for this game's health. What we need are players not that hold on to things and have the potential to come back, but players that are in here doing stuff. So what we're going to do is try to make it so that new players want to stick around, that old players are challenged, and that HiSec has stuff to do that's not just PvP oriented, because clearly players have shown that they can become stagnant all on their own when they form big empires and finally reach the levels of accomplishment that they want to. Players will sit on their stuff. And this is, I think, another judgment CCP has shown, that we don't want players that just sit on their stuff. We want players that go out there and aggravate each other, not necessarily in a bad way, but just move around and bump into each other and create friction. And that seems to be where they want the game to go. It has to be a more dynamic game. And things are being adjusted to make people want to get out and do stuff. And if you're sitting around waiting for, just sitting there owning Eve and counting your coins, that's not in favor right now. That's what I think's going on.
I think the problem is, once the dust settles in this and the honeymoon period is over, it's the same old Eve, and the players that come back are either going to sink or swim. But the players that may return to a later date, they'll return and find all their belongings gone, and they won't return. They'll silently log off and they'll
I
stop
know.
playing.
We've been through
There's a
that
lot
a
of
bunch of
players
times, Rich,
who-
but here's the thing,
Well,
Rich. You like this change. You're outraged for people that you don't know.
I like this change, but the execution of it is just a travesty, in my opinion. There's a lot of people who, are unable to play Eve, that have to put real life before Eve, whether it be by their own decision or the decision was made for them to do so. And this is punishing them for doing that. I don't think there's any MMO out there that is, any MMO in general, that punishes players for putting their real life before the game.
You don't know that they're doing that. You're assuming they're doing that.
Well, we've seen people lose Blueprint original collections worth trillions. We've seen people on the Reddit just find out and log in to find their belongings.
And you don't know that they're putting real life before you don't know they're putting their real life before the game. They may be saying, I'm tired of this game and I'm done with it. I'm not even going to spend time cleaning it up or giving my stuff away.
And it's okay to, screw these players over, these once loyal players that paid for the game and contributed to the game. I don't think that's right at all.
It's not, they're not being disloyal to them. They're basically saying, if you're not here and you're not doing stuff, we're not making this game for you. We're making the game for people who are here and doing stuff, and we got to focus on them because that's the future.
Well, unfortunately,
Right.
to me,
I mean,
it's not where I'm constantly waking up in the middle of the night worried that all the progress and all the fun I had on there might be magically taken away because I'm no longer subscribed and I'm no longer playing. If I want to take a break, I want to come back to the game that I once enjoyed and continue where I left off. And that's what CCP talked about. They talked about this when they introduced asset safety. They talked about the safety of it and the sanctity of asset safety in I Feel Safe in Citadel City on the 25th.
So in the risk of this going circular, because Rich is already on his second or third reiteration of his point. Yeah,
and
there's going to be people who support
second
it,
correction,
and there's going to be people who don't. Right? I know I'm getting baited.
Yeah.
I'm getting trolled, but everyone's going to have an opinion. People are going to either like it or hate it. Even within my own alliance, my own coalition, I see in chat channels support, and then people saying this was a wrong decision. You're going to have the opinions range. One thing you can do, because we can't go back and change this, what you can do is you can reach out to friends and say, hey, there's this major change in Eve. I know you're not playing, but log in, access safety your stuff. And I think everyone who has friends in the game that have had real life contacts, contact him. If you're a CEO or a director of a corporation, you can do that as well. If you have a structure that you are just going to let go and abandon, you can unanchor it and force an asset safety to save the assets of your inactives. And I think those are the things we can do.
One last thing, and then Rich, I'll give you one last word on this, but I like this from Crunchbird says, if I stop renting an apartment, should I expect that I can go back and rent an apartment 3 years later and complain that the landlord didn't keep my stuff for me? That's kind of funny.
That's
I'm not
kinda
sure it's the
funny.
same thing, but
As humorous as it is, unfortunately, these are policies that CCP instituted, that they talked about, that they promoted to get more people to move into these citadels. They talked about the safety of asset safety and how players shouldn't have to worry. And in a matter of 45 days, and not everybody gets an email, they've undone it. I have no problems against this update at all. I love this update. I want to see all of these abandoned structures that clutter up systems burn. But what I don't want to see is how it was executed, and it was executed in a way that stabs all the old players in the back.
listen, that to me feels like you want to be outraged and you found a thing, but you really aren't. I mean, I heard this
No,
from
I am
Goonswarm.
outraged because I've got somebody in my corp who owns multiple AT ships, and they were very lucky to be able to get it moved. Because had they not known about this, and had somebody gone on Singularity like people have done to destroy structures and find out which ones contain the valuable loot for when the update hits, he would have lost his AT ships. And I don't want people to quit EVE. I want more people to play EVE. I want more people to return, because that means more people playing and more people for me to kill.
By the way, we have seen an AT ship fall out of one of these structures, haven't we?
Yes, apparently an imp worth 500 billion ISK, just for the hull alone, has been popped out of an abandoned citadel that somebody, well, thought that they could trust asset safety and wasn't aware of the changes.
And somebody else lost some T2 BPOs.
2 trillion ISK worth of BPOs for some of the most desirable items in the game.
Yeah, there's some pain involved there. I also feel like I was just talking to Elise, or Elise was chatting, and he wrote that he's come across some groups that are smaller, and he says like, well, we're just trying to weather this thing because they had like 8 moon mining facilities, and it was a very small corporation, and they were just trying to weather this because they had already been drastically affected by the moon mining changes. So I think it begs a real question on who's taking the punishment for these moves. Is it is it players who are trying to, like, get a small thing going, or is it people who are long gone? It'll be interesting. It'll be interesting to see how much pressure CCP is putting on the small independent industrial corporation or mining organization. Be interesting to see that. We might explore that on the next Sunday show. All right. Any last thoughts on this?
A lot of these changes are presenting us with a leadership opportunity. CCP is moving things around. They're changing how moon mining works. They're changing asset safety. They're changing security status if you're in those invasion systems.
Yeah.
And some groups are going to struggle with how do I operate in this new EVE? How do I lead my guys in this new EVE? So if you have any aspirations, be a leadership, and you know how these things work, and you feel you can lead others through these changes, it's a great opportunity for you to take on and join a group of folks and lead them through the changes of EVE.
I like that. Good opportunity to lead. Pretty good. All right, we have to wrap it up. We have to wrap it up, Rich. Go ahead. Last comment, though. I don't want to cut you off.
Sure. I feel my issue is with these updates recently. It's not the update itself. The updates are brilliant, but they feel rushed, and I feel that when these updates are implemented in poor ways and they're rushed, it ruins the update. A delayed update eventually becomes good, but a rushed one, it stays bad forever.
You said that you like this update. You mean this is the communication has been too rushed? Like this has happened too rushed? Is that?
the communication and the implementation is too rushed and not well thought out. There could have been a million better systems
If
to
you didn't like
handle.
the implementation, why do you like this update?
Because I don't mind bashing down these ancient structures and getting some looted out of it, but I feel that this loot should have been people who've left it there and that it was their mistake rather than them doing everything right and believing in the safety and then being screwed over by CCP. I want it to be their fault, not if it's not their fault, it's unjust. It's something that could happen to me in the future. I don't want myself to take a break in the future and come back to find all of my progress reset when I thought I could trust the developer and the game.
All right. Thanks for presenting all of that. We'll leave it there. Real quick, Dutch, is there anything to be updated on with the invasions? Dutch, are you here? Some people jump in here and then take off. It must be gone. All right. Well, we don't have an invasions update, but we'll find out if there's stuff tomorrow. I'm sorry. Are you there?
I am.
Real quick, is there anything? There may not be. Is there anything for the invasion?
Well, it seems that the current focus from Triglavian supporters is in the system of Veil. And in the previous batch, there was a lot of systems in low security, and currently all the invasions in stellar reconnaissance, and there are 6 systems in total, are all in high sec. No, correction, sorry, 5 are in high sec, 1 is in low sec. In Promised Land, no less.
Okay, what does this mean?
Basically, it covers both. The invasions happens in both high and low security systems, and there's just a different feeling of safety. Like high security systems tend to make people feel more safe, so they're willing to bring out the more costly, the more expensive ships and modules out there. With low sec, people tend to be a bit more preserved. And it's a big tug of war where there seems to be a lot of support for Triglavians. Like Promised Land is about to flip to the first stage in support of Edencom, Arzani. And then on the other hand, it's the system of Veil that seems to be really close to being flipped in favor of the Triglavians, which would mean that pushes Veil into first luminality. And yeah, it's look at the agency, look where they are. If you want to support Incom, you can either go to Veil, try to resist the Triglavian supporters push. You could go to any of the other systems and just run Triglavian sites, go after Triglavian roaming ships, and push it towards Edencom. So it's a big tug of war. It's happening all over Eden. And what happened in Rarivos, if nothing happens and things keep going the way it goes, the system of Veil is going to be next.
Wow. Well, check it out. Is there something about gate animation?
It's terrible from what I've heard, because now by the time you land on grid, you're still in a warp tunnel, and you're landing on grid for more than 5 seconds, 8 seconds, where you cannot do anything. So if you land on grid and there's a ship with a sub 8 second align time, which is pretty much every other ship, by the time you can control your ship, they've already warped off. So to me, it's this new gate animation update, absolutely terrible. All it does is add extra vanity and fluff.
All right, tell me one thing you do like, Rich. What's going on that you do like?
What I do like is how all these massive amounts of structures are being finally cleared out. And if I go into a wormhole and find some abandoned structure they failed to refuel, I can knock it down in one session rather than having to return over the course of 2-3 days.
All right. So I want to thank everybody. We're going to go ahead and raid Torvald next. Thank you guys for showing up. Thanks for listening in today. We'll see you tomorrow.
Really quick, Matterall.
Oh, yeah, go ahead.
I just wanted to give one quick update from the
Okay.
Velator kill yesterday.
Oh, right. Yeah, we saw another one today.
Yeah, because I got everybody yelled at me. They're just like, damn.
Okay, hold on.
Like, okay,
Let's set it up
right.
again. We saw...
Yeah.
Go ahead and set up. Tell us what we saw yesterday.
So we were looking through Z-Kill, and I had noticed a corp mate's Velator on there. It was worth what, 10 something bill, and we were just like, "Oh, that's crazy." And I'm like, guys." So I went to go asking my corp, and I didn't really get a straight answer until I got into voice comms like hours later after we had finished. But I figured out what happened because a lot of people were just like, "Oh, RMT, RMT, RMT." Actually, it wasn't, but it really does look like it. So what happened was that my corp had been involved in some of the abandoned fortresses that have been going down recently, and there were two groups there. It was us, it was our alliance, and another group of people. When the structure blew up, and I believe this was in a 0.7 system, all the containers came out were yellow. And so he immediately, in a Velator, rushed over to a canister, just immediately looted everything and went suspect. And that's when the enemy fleet said, him. And then
Oh.
just.
That
So that's
So-
typical. That's typical with this abandoned structure. You should see a lot of that. So when we see small ships die with lots of valuable cargo, in the past we would think, "Oh, new player mistake. Ooh, RMT." But ever since this change with abandoned structures, your go-to should be someone's trying to loot something,
yes,
because that's one of the mechanics. Get in there with a small, fast ship and try to get a lucky drop.
that totally
Yeah.
makes
And
totally
to be
makes
fair,
sense.
that that was what happened there. So that's why it looks so weird. But yeah, it was all blueprints and it was insane. But yeah, the containers were yellow, which is why he went suspect.
All right. Thanks very much for clearing that up. That's probably what happened today as
Yep.
well. Look for more of that. Thanks, everybody. Check out Tarvold. We'll see you tomorrow.